All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to talk about the Jets and whether or not I think they can make the playoffs. But before I do that, once again, I want to remind you guys to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show. And for bonus coverage materials that are not covered by this broadcast, make sure to go to patreon.com and search up GSMC Sports Network, and that is where you can find all the exclusive content for all of our podcasts here on the GSMC Sports Network. So, we are now in the third topic of today's show, and that is talking about the New York Jets and whether or not they can make the playoffs. Obviously, they're coming off of a big win against the Eagles, a game that not a lot of people really predicted them to win, myself included. And again, the offense still has its issues, but they were able to force 4 turnovers against the Eagles. Jalen Hurts threw 3 picks. The last one was obviously, a terrible interception. And, obviously that set up the Breece Hall touchdown. The Eagles couldn't, get down the field to score points in time. And they ended up losing the game 20-14. And the Jets are 3-3 going into the bye. And listen, after 4 plays into their first offensive drive, and Aaron Rodgers goes down, I mean, right then you were like, yeah, season's over for them. They're done. And you saw the Bills, score that touchdown, and it just the stadium was electric before that game. With Rodgers coming out with the flag, and then the energy just got sucked out of the stadium when he got hurt, and even more when Allen threw the touchdown to Diggs. But then after that, they forced turnovers. They got themselves back in the game. Garrett Wilson had that amazing touchdown, and the Jets won that game. And you thought, okay, I mean they won, so let's see what happens. I mean, then they get blown out by Dallas. They lose to the Patriots, but then they're competitive against the Chiefs. They lose that game, but they beat Denver, and then they beat the Eagles, which, again, not a lot of people thought that was going to happen. And listen, I think Zach Wilson has definitely looked better. Still not great, but he's managing the game. And I think, they should open up the offense more, but I think the important thing is you got to limit the turnovers, and he hasn't turned the ball over. And they got to run they got to run the offense through Breece Hall. That's what they're going to have to do. And I thought the crazy thing about the win is the fact that the Jets didn't have their top 2 corners. They didn't have DJ Reed, and they didn't have Sauce Gardner. But the fact that they were able to pick up this win without their top 2 corners is very telling. And I think it's a credit to the coaching staff, because, listening to, sports talk radio here, and hearing what they have to say here in New York, Robert Saleh is talking about, we want, our players to, because they asked Robert Saleh, why, Sauce Gardner doesn't, travel with, some of the top receivers. And Robert Saleh is talking about how everybody doesn't want to do that because he wants everybody to have a role, be familiar with everybody gets a chance to do things on the defensive side of the ball, familiarize themselves with the schemes and everything. They don't want to just just have Sauce. As much as I think Sauce should do that. They want to have all the other players getting involved so they know what to do, in certain situations, if that makes sense. I didn't really explain that well, but if you know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about. But, the Jets defense, I don't expect them to have 4 turnovers every single game, but, as long as the defense keeps them in games, and they can run the football and Zach doesn't turn the ball over, I mean, they're going to win games. They're going to win games. And listen, I've talked about it. They have held the top, 3 of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. Okay? to actually 6 points in the second half, which is crazy to think about. Eagles didn't score in the second half. I think the Chiefs scored like 6 points in the second half, and I think the Bills, the Chiefs scored 3 in the second half against the Jets. Hold on, we have to go back for a minute, because I think the number was 6. Yeah, no, the Chiefs only scored 3 points in the second half. That was it, and the Bills scored 3. Eagles didn't score any. But the other thing too is now why I think the Jets can make the playoffs, and they probably make it as like the 6 or 7 seed, more likely the 7 seed, is because I look at their schedule, and I talked about it. They have a lot of winnable games on their schedule. So right now they're in the bye week at 3-3, but out of the bye they're against the Giants. They play against the Chargers, and I did go through the schedule, but we're going to go through it again. One of the previous segments, or one of the previous shows this week. They got the Giants, then they're home against the Chargers. So, both games are home games. I mean, the Jets are playing at MetLife, but home against the Chargers, at Raiders, at Buffalo, which is going to be tough. Home against Miami, that's the Black Friday game. Home against the Falcons. They have 3 straight home games. Against the Dolphins, Falcons, Texans. At the Dolphins, home against Washington, at Browns, at Patriots. There's a lot of winnable games on that schedule. Now, the Patriots are going to give them problems because for some reason they just can't beat them. At the Browns is going to be tough because the Browns have a very good defense as well, and that could definitely be problems for the Jets offense. But again, the Jets have a very good defense themselves, and Deshaun Watson hasn't been great. Home against the Commanders. Sam Howell has looked good, but against the Bills he was bad, and the Bills have a good defense. So, and that was a home game for them. Now they're going to be coming over to MetLife, and the Jets are good at home. The Jets play well at home, so they can win that game. They could beat the Texans. They could beat the Falcons. C.J. Stroud's been good, but I think the Jets against the rookie quarterback, they could force him into turnovers. I think the toughest games on their schedule is really, against their divisional opponents and against the Browns. And those are all road games. I think the Chargers, the other night, they just didn't look good. And, what the Jets have done against elite quarterbacks, I think it's, 2 touchdowns to, 3 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. I think that's what it is. Because Allen threw 3, Hurts threw 3. Mahomes threw 2. I kept saying 3 because he did throw 3. He could have threw 4. And if it wasn't for penalties, he would have had more. So, against Justin Herbert, who, again, hasn't looked great, who didn't look great the other night, I think they could force him into turnovers. So, I think there's a lot of winnable games. So I'm going to say, listen, you beat the Giants, so that gets you to 4-3. Beat the Chargers, that gets you to 5-3. I think they beat the Raiders, so that's 6-3. I'll say they lose to Buffalo, get them to 6-4. They'll split with Miami. So 7-4, 8-4, 9-4, 9-5. Then I get them to 10-5. That's tough. I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready to say that though. I think they get to nine wins. I think 9 wins is a real possibility. I don't want to say 10. Can they get to 10? I think they can, but I think 9 is a real possibility for this team. But again, that all comes down to the offense, because the defense. Listen, they've had their bad games against Dallas. They were bad, but I really do think that if the offense can limit the turnovers and they're in close games and you can run the football with Brees, they're going to win a lot of these games. Now, again, you'd like to see Zach Wilson air it out a little more, but, maybe the Jets are kind of a little hesitant with it. So we'll see. But I think the Jets can make the playoffs. Now, whether or not they will, again, we'll just have to wait and see. But they have a lot of winnable games on their schedule, and that's why I would lean more towards yes, they will make the playoffs, is because of their schedule. because Desmond Ridder, he doesn't. I think they could force him into turnovers. The Chargers' offense the other night didn't look great, and I think against the Jets, who have a better defense than the Cowboys right now, I think they could force Herbert into turnovers. The Giants aren't great. Well, the Giants not that they're not great, they're bad. They're really bad. So they should beat the Giants. They should. And I think they could split with Miami. I definitely think they could do that. And again, because it's a home game. And again, they what they did to Josh Allen, Hurts, and Mahomes, like, I mean, they could do that to Tua. They could do that to Herbert. Now, on the road, it's going to be tough. Going to Buffalo is going to be tough. Playing against Miami in Miami is going to be tough. But the Jets, they're good at home. It just doesn't make sense why they lost to the Patriots. I mean, I could definitely see this happening. All they got to do is win and get in. But guess what? It's going to have to come against the Patriots, week 18 of the season. I could so see that happening. And if the Patriots have like 2 or 3 wins at that point, and it's coming down to that game, I mean, if the Jets lost that game, I mean, again, this is just a hypothetical scenario, but if the Jets had to win to get in against the Patriots, and the Patriots have a terrible record, and the Patriots still won, man, that would be terrible. But I don't want to speak that into existence because I have a lot of family and friends that are Jet fans. And, like, I'm happy for them. I am. And let's not forget, Aaron Rodgers was warming up, throwing passes before the game. No walking boot, no crutches. It might be a possibility that he can actually come back this year. Now, again, like I said the other day, I don't expect it. Jets got to make the playoffs to really make this possible, but yeah, I mean, if Aaron Rodgers is able to play, regardless of what Zach Wilson is doing, Aaron Rodgers is the starter. But we'll have to wait and see. But I really do think that the Jets have a formula to win, and their schedule, like the hard part of their schedule, is over, and they're 3-3. They beat Buffalo, they beat Philadelphia, they could have beaten Kansas City. But you know what? You'll take 3-3. You will. And now you got the lighter part of the schedule. Again, there's tough games on the schedule, but you got through the gauntlet. So I lean more towards yes, the Jets will make the playoffs. But again, like, there's a lot of teams that they're gonna have to deal with. They got to deal with the Ravens and the Bengals fighting for the division, Pittsburgh, Miami and Buffalo obviously are. One of them is going to be a wild card team. You got the Browns. Don't want to count them out, especially with what their defense has been doing as well. And the Jets do play them. So with the Chargers and the Raiders, I mean, they're going to be fighting for wild card spots, even though I think the Jets are better than the Raiders. The Chargers, obviously they have Herbert, and Austin Eckler just came back. Keenan Allen's having a great year, but they didn't look that good. I think the Jets can beat them. So there's a lot of teams that the Jets are going to have to fight with for a wild card spot. But you know what? The key for them is their defense and limiting turnovers on offense. And if they could do that, they continue to play well on defense and win these close games. Like, who knows? Who knows? But they're heading in the right direction. I think this win definitely could go a long way for them. But we'll just have to wait and see. So that's basically it. Talking about this topic here. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think the Jets will make the playoffs, or do you think that they're going to be once again on the outside looking in? All right, so we're going to take our final break of the show, and then when we come back, we will look at the current stat leaders after Week 6 in the NFL. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.